Alright everybody, RMJ Movie Reviews back again with my review of Straight Outta Compton, the new movie by F. Gary Gray. A film about the legendary, one of the originators of gangster rap, N.W.A, which everybody remembers was Eazy-E, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, and then the other guys. I don't even remember their names because I think it was in the 80s. But either way, let me go on my review. And this review is going to be all over the place because this movie, I really liked the movie. The film was very well done. It was extremely reverent and faithful to N.W.A, the group. Very much reverent to the time period, the songs, everybody who was a part of the N.W.A wave at that time, a lot of the things that were going on in the world, in society. There's a lot to digest in this film. I've heard some reviews, and I think the film is rated pretty high right now. I did read a couple of other reviews that kind of shortchanged the movie a little bit. I disagree with that. There's so much to digest in this movie. This movie covers a lot of stuff. That's the reference I wanted to make, is that I don't think, there was one particular review I saw this morning. I can't remember. I think it's from the New York Times, but I don't think it really gave the movie enough credit for how much material this movie had to cover and condense. I mean, there's a lot going on here that they had to cover, and for as much as they had to cover, I think they really handled it very well. I wasn't crazy about the ending of the film and how it wrapped, because I felt it ended a little anticlimactically, but I'm not going to give away spoilers here. I'm going to save that, let you guys see how you feel about it when you see the film. But in terms of the story, this is typical stuff. Start from poverty, rise to the top, and once you bring in money, not handling your business, the ego gets involved. Once the ego and money get involved, friends who are good friends, brothers, they turn against each other, and then they fall. I mean, simple story. So as far as the story is concerned, I wasn't even worried about that. I was really more interested because F. Gary Gray, who directed Friday, The Negotiator, Law Abiding Citizen, tons of great films. I am so happy that they got a veteran filmmaker. I'm sorry, set it off too. I'm very happy that they got a veteran filmmaker who's really cut his teeth to handle this material, because back in the 90s, this would have been handled by somebody who would have directed a straight-to-video Master P movie. But I'm happy they got a very strong director to handle this material. There's just so much to digest in this movie, man. What I really liked about the movie is, I really liked in particular, and I'm sorry guys, I didn't check everybody's names on IMDb. A lot of the people in the picture, I'm assuming are unknown character actors. And everybody handles their role very well. I'm going to go in on Ice Cube, not go in like in a bad way. I mean, I'm going to direct this part towards Ice Cube's son. Ice Cube's son did a very good job. I've heard some reviews where people kind of say that he wasn't as good. I would slightly agree with that, but I'll lean more towards that when I get towards the negatives. But I think, it's pretty insane because he looks exactly like Ice Cube. Like, it's nuts how much he looks like Ice Cube. Like, he looks so much like him that I, for a minute, was watching the movie and forgot that it wasn't Ice Cube. And that is one of the things that I really do like about this movie, is that there's moments where some of the actors, I kind of don't feel they inhabit their characters, but for the most part, everybody in this movie who's playing a real person inhabits the spirit of the guys of N.W.A. In particular, the guy who plays Eazy-E, he embodied Eazy-E to the T. It was scary how much he embodied Eazy-E. The guy who played Dre, he really got down Dre's very kind of, you know, laid back, mellow kind of, you know, I'm focused on the artistic business. Even some of his mannerisms when he was like on the doing the mix and he was on the board in the studio, kind of, I mean, he looked just like clips I've seen from Dre on MTV, which I'm sure the actors studied that. And like I said, Ice Cube's son, he embodies his father to a T, especially the scenes where he got the curl, the Boys in the Hood curl. I thought I was looking at Ice Cube for real. The other two guys, I don't know, so I'm just gonna pass on that. The actor who played Suge Knight, he really, for the most part, embodies Suge. There's a couple of line readings I would have liked to have come out a different way. I kind of wish, and I'm nitpicking here, I kind of wish he would have did a little bit more with his voice. You know, I think there's certain lines, just a little bit, but for the most part, he embodies Suge the way Suge, the Suge that we've all known. You know, there's a guy, Pac pops up for like 1 minute. But the actor who played Pac, I mean, when the camera was far away, I mean, it threw me off. I thought it was Pac. But then once the actor spoke, it was kind of like, nah, that's not Pac. But for a minute there, I was kind of like, geez. I wasn't particularly crazy about the dude who played Snoop. I do like a couple of kind of the way he used his voice, kind of, you know, the way Snoop has that laid back kind of thing that he had going at that time. You know, he kind of embodies a little bit of Snoop. He doesn't look jack crap like Snoop, but he did kind of embody Snoop's attitude, you know. You know, it shows the typical stuff. You know, guys struggling, you know, and how they really, it's almost like a Rocky story but just put the group of N.W.A. in it. You know what I mean? You really just want to be hard to be number one. Except Rocky didn't, you know, fall apart at the end of the movie. You know, he kind of kept going up. But another thing, I love how it really nails it's very authentic in terms of the 80s. When you even look at the records and the songs that they play, because they play N.W.A. songs. So, you know, N.W.A. songs, and even other songs that would play at the time, which I can only remember that because I have older siblings who are in their 40s, and they used to play this music around me. So that's how I remember, that's how I know how authentic it is. You know, there's a couple things with people's hairstyles and stuff that I don't think are, you know, I don't think Cats was rocking the crisp tapered lineups in 1986, but whatever. I understand, you know, you can't get every detail right, but it was mostly down packed. Another thing I really liked is goodness, man, there's so much to cover, man. I really liked how it emphasized how very hostile the Los Angeles Police Department was, and I loved how it made that connection between why they were niggas with attitude and in direct correlation to how the Los Angeles Police Department were treating minorities at that time, which they were brutalizing people. You know, the film opens with a drug deal, but they drive a damn tank. And this is real stuff. I mean, I'm telling you, like, if there's anybody out here who's like in their early 20s or late teens or whatever, guys, I'm telling you, the Los Angeles Police Department were driving tanks through people's houses and beating the hell out of people, and they were getting away with it, you know. And that was in direct correlation to had they showed this is more towards the second act of the film, heading towards the third, but the Rodney King riots. I was 10 years old. I was 9 when I saw the tape on NBC of Rodney King getting beat, but when the actual riots happened, I was 10. That was the next year, and I saw it that night when it happened on television. And when them cats got off, the reaction was, and the thing that I loved about it in the theater is that you could feel it was always, and I could see that everybody in there was old enough to have remembered when that happened. So when they read that, because they actually take a news clip from one of the news stations at the time, but when they read that reaction that them cops got off, everybody in the theater had the same reaction again. We all did. That was very true to what happened at that time. But it really put the correlation between why they made that song "Fuck the Police," and it's very authentic to how things happened in the group at that time. And then I love how it gives a lot of detail about what was going on, how Suge, Suge Knight is presented as, for what most of us believe to be what he is in real life, which is a narcissistic sociopath. He's a narcissistic sociopath and a murderer. That's who Suge is. And it shows what went down at death row. I mean, there's scenes where, like, they were beating people's asses in the studio. They got a scene where a dude is held hostage in the studio. Suge and them are drinking, eating chicken wings, drinking liquor, and they got attack dogs around the dude, and the dude is in his drawers. I mean, you can see that Suge was like straight penitentiary sociopath, psychopathic personality. It was nuts, Goes in a lot of detail about Eazy-E, his promiscuous behavior, the women. Another thing it shows is their manager Jerry, and how you kind of, the guys started kind of turning against each other because they felt like Eazy and their manager Jerry knew more about the business, but the reality was that Eazy was just the catalyst. Eazy was the guy, the hoorah guy, to get the boys to go along. Jerry, I love how they present in the movie that them guys didn't know nothing about business. Jerry would come in, Jerry would leave the room, do the business, come in, say, "Hey guy, here's the paper to sign." Eazy and none of them knew nothing about the business at all. And it shows, and I love how it didn't really make Jerry look like a bad guy. It just made it look like, for what it is that you have to know your business when you're in entertainment. You got to know your business, period. And if you aren't paying attention, people would get over on you. And it was presented just as that. So it wasn't like, it wasn't really trying to make it, and that's what I like too. It wasn't trying to make Suge look like a bad guy. It wasn't trying to make Jerry look like a bad guy. It just presented it for what it is. Suge is a criminal personality. Jerry is a businessman. Just a businessman. And I love, there's a line where he says, "This is business. You might not like it. It may not be pretty, but this is business." So it presented it for the way it is. The way it is. If you don't know your business, people will get over on you. God, there's so much. It really shows a lot of how Cube left the group and the beef that started to happen between Cube and Eazy and Dre. It didn't really emphasize kind of how, like, when Dre went with Death Row with Suge, and how, like, they had the Dre Day video and Eazy was bending over, taking it up the butt and all that stuff, which I remember watching all that stuff at the time when it was happening. One thing, and I don't know if this is true to real life, but I did not realize that they, I guess, we're still in contact with each other while all this stuff was going on. I didn't know that. I thought none of them had spoke with each other. The movie says that they were all still cool with each other. That could be creative license. Who knows? Geez, there's so much to digest. This review is long, man, but there's so much to digest in the movie. I really enjoyed the film. Those are pretty much the things that I liked about it. The attention to the detail at the time period, the extreme detail to just the little nuances of just what was going on at that time, the relationship with the police, the attention to detail for the songs, the 80s time period, all into the early 90s, the personalities of the characters. It really delves into that good. Now for the nitpicks. My nitpicks is, Ice Cube's son. I think the guy did a good job, there was a couple times where I didn't feel like he was inhabiting the character. There was a couple times where I felt like he was reading lines. That was in particular the scene with the journalist, and he's got the Nation of Islam bow tie dudes while he's interviewing this interview guy, and he kind of lays into the interview guy a little bit. That scene, I kind of felt like he was reading words off of paper. It didn't feel like he was just in it, you know, doing it, you know. So that's a nitpick, you know. And there's a couple scenes, and then when it gets to the it really slight spoiler, but the third act is all Eazy-E finding out about him having AIDS, which the dude who played Eazy-E, man, he's fantastic. He's absolutely fantastic. By far, out of all the guys who in the group, in the movie, actors, he's fantastic. You know, they don't overly emphasize Eazy-E's AIDS thing, but it that puts a cap on the movie. You know, and when the doctor tells him he has AIDS, man, I mean, his reaction is genuinely painful, man. Like, I mean, it is the way you would feel if somebody told you have AIDS. You'd be devastated, you know. He's a standout in the movie to me, by far. The movie ends with a confrontation between, you know, ultimately with Dre leaving Death Row, and then that's the end of the movie. Now, I'm not quite sure I believe this part of the movie where Dre comes in and tells Suge that, hey, it's over, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, of course, the dude who plays Suge just kind of goes like, oh, you ain't done. You ain't done. Because that's my money. I own them souls. We all in this together. You ain't leaving. You ain't taking my money. You know, he just that whole intimidation Suge with the cigar thing. And he's got his attack. What I love in the scene though is the attack dog is sitting next to the table, and I can't remember what the dog's name was. He was like, yo, boom boom, and he goes like this, and the dog automatically sits. And I'm like, if that does not embody Suge Knight, I don't know what does. And I love how, like, there's this big confrontation between Dre and Suge, and like as Dre kind of goes like, no, I don't care what you do, like Suge has like 4 cats who are like these big linebacker, like they'll just snap your neck with their finger type of cats, and they all rise in the background as Dre gets pumped, and then Suge just goes like, no. And actually, matter of fact, I did that wrong. He didn't even look back. He just was like, no, as if almost like some Darth Vader type stuff. Like he just felt them. I mean, it was crazy, man. I like those scenes, but I'm not quite sure if I believe in real life that Dre got that amped with Suge. I don't know if I think that might be creative license for the movie, but I wish the movie kind of would have went on a little bit more after that, but you know, regardless, I really enjoyed the film. I really, really, really enjoyed the film. Going back to the Suge Knight thing, because Suge Knight is such a fascinating character in real life, and you know, seeing is what actually happened on the set when they made this movie. I'm sure you all know Suge Knight ran over 2 people and killed one guy, but he came down to the set and just, so pretty much, you know, what Suge does in the movie, Suge did in real life on the set to 2 people who were on the set of the movie, of this film. I love the scenes how they show how Suge kind of infiltrates the management part of the group. He kind of overtakes Jerry and kind of sinks his claws in again. But I love how Suge just kind of just shows up with his cigar and he just kind of watches, looks, and then he bounces. I mean, it's kind of sick, but it kind of makes Suge into a cool looking person, you know, although he is a murderer, you know. But the movie makes Suge look cool. Like he just kind of just comes in the background, looks at everybody. He just wants everybody to feel his presence, and he bounces. It's awesome. Check out Straight Outta Compton, y'all. I think it'll really be good for people who are old enough to remember when N.W.A came out, old enough to remember like all the death row and the beef and how they separated. I remember all of that. I wasn't like a N.W.A fan when I was a kid. I kind of remember more from the Boys in the Hood time period, which would be the early 90s and up. I don't really remember the 80s part of N.W.A. But it's very authentic. The thing that I thought was funny, now I'm going to digress and not talk about the movie anymore. I'm going to talk about ignorant folk who got to come to the movie. We all know a movie like this is going to draw them out. I tried my best to make it to the early show. The earliest I could make it was 4 o'clock. So I was forced. Luckily, it was a packed house, but there was only about 6 ignorant folk in there. So unfortunately, they had to kind of mess up parts of the movie because I could tell by their behavior that they were inebriated, even though it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but whatever. Luckily, it was only a couple troublemakers that came out. Of course, tonight, it's going to be a whole theater full of them, so I'm happy I made it early. You know, I just don't understand, like, well, I do understand. It's fucking alcohol. It's alcohol and it's weed and other substances. That's what it is. Because what I love, though, is that the movie was so long that the movie kind of wore them down. So kind of halfway through the movie, they kind of like stopped responding and just... Because there would be scenes where, like, there'd be these dramatic scenes and they're just talking and they'd be like, yeah, what? LA. I'm like, you... Guys, we're in Ohio. What are you what? Suge in the house. Like, oh my God. And they have to shout. Like, now don't get me wrong, as a filmmaker, I love when audience members get involved, but what I have a problem with is when you're just trying to upstage the film. And that's why I feel like cats like that, they're trying to upstage the movie. They want their own show to be in the damn seat. And it's like, you know, if you want to perform, why don't you go to a comedy club, join a theater program, learn how to act, learn how to do improv? Why must you destroy the movie experience for the rest of us? But thank goodness the rest of the audience was mature enough to ignore them. And they didn't ruin the movie for us. I'm happy a couple of the Usher guys came in and said, y'all got to calm that down. And thank God they didn't do nothing crazy. You know, they basically was just like, all right, my man. But it's just, you know, them be the type of cats, man, that just don't want to make you want to go to the movies, man. But thank goodness it wasn't a lot of them. And they were still acting crazy when the movies. I'm surprised they actually held in there that long. But, you know, it's kind of that class clown type of personality. You know, there are people in there who want to study and learn, but the fool always wants to do whatever he can to mess up everybody else. Well, I'm happy everybody in the audience was mature enough and they just kind of drowned them out. But those guys stayed strong, man. I mean, they wouldn't quit, man. I give them credit for not quitting. You know, another thing that I thought was funny was a lot of the audience, half of them, I believe, were probably born in the mid-90s. You know, so that's what I found hysterical, because I'm kind of looking at some of them and they're like, oh, Deep Cover. Like, the movie is totally faithful to time period, so it makes a lot of references to Deep Cover. Of course, F the Police, other songs N.W.A. made. Talks a lot about Friday. Did I say? I might have said Boys in the Hood already. It makes a lot of references. Songs of the disses that Cube and Dre and Easy were throwing off between each other. And what I find hilarious is I'm like looking at these young kids and they're like, yeah, and I'm like, shut up. I don't even know how any of them even knew what they were talking about, which none of them did. So I think the movie would probably be more enjoyable for those of us who are old enough to remember when all these references, basically everything that's in the movie as it was happening, it's fun for us. For them young kids who are in there nodding their head like they know, it might be alright for them, but whatever. They don't know what they're talking about. But I know that was 24 minutes, y'all. That was a very long review, but there was so much I had to cover. I missed some stuff. So please subscribe to my channel. Leave some comments about Straight Outta Compton. Let's talk about the movie. We can talk about ignorant audience folk too, who gotta mess it up for everybody. Hit a thumbs up for my video. That's all I got to say, y'all. 24 minutes. If you hung in there, I appreciate it. I had a lot to say because it was a long movie. There was a lot to digest here. So, RMJ Movie Reviews. I will be back with my movie review of Colors, starring Sean Penn, and that's going to be in direct correlation to this movie because it takes place in that time period. Bloods, Crips, Los Angeles, brutal police force. Fits. I'll see you later.